Hey there, hey friends, Ken here, your Thrifty Apprentice, and welcome back to another Thrifty Review video. So today, friends, we are taking a look at the Uni Mitsubishi pencil, Posca color pencil 36 count set. Now, I had no idea that Posca made color pencils, and evidently they have been around for a few years now, so I am really late to the party. But if you do not know, Uni Mitsubishi is the parent company that makes many different products, from fine liners to the famous Uniball Signal white gel pen that you guys know that I use on a very regular basis. They make the Posca line of products, the Posca ever famous acrylic marker that is used by many different artists. And they also make a Posca wax crayon. It's almost like a wax-based pastel, which I probably will be getting to test out in future videos. But today we're taking a look at the color pencils. So the pencils are actually in the budget category. I'll tell you from the beginning that this entire set of pencils, 36, is going to run you about $35, $36 on Amazon. So when you pop it open, it is gonna come in this like plastic sleeve carrier. You have 4 trays stacked on top of each other and held together by this elastic band. On the front, there's some really pretty illustration in my opinion. Posca pencils, 36. The Mitsubishi Pencil Company Ltd. Says the same thing here, Uni Mitsubishi Pencil. If you flip the case over on the back, you're gonna get no information. Now on the actual sleeve itself, you have Posca pencils. They are a oil color pencil. Advertisement says that they're a soft and smooth writing experience with bright colors. Easy color blending delivers an oil paint effect by blending the drawing line with an oil medium, and that they are light resistant. 36 colors, and then it gives you the actual color names for each color on the back of the box. Now, that's important to note because those color names are not printed on the pencil. However, the adjacent number is printed on the pencil so that you can reference. In order to do that, you do have to keep this carrier. I was thinking maybe I'll just take a pair of scissors and cut it out and then just put this in the swatch book along with my swatch sheet. We'll see about that. All right. So as I said earlier, you're going to get 4 trays. The top tray is just a cover, and then there are 3 trays of pencils. I have left them in the order that they actually come in the tray, because that is in correspondence to the way it's laid out on the back of the box. But again, if you get them mixed up, it really doesn't matter because the number is printed on here and you can always refer back to the color names if you need to. Let's take a look at the pencils here. As you can see, you're getting round pencils, so they will be subject to roll. Something to keep in mind. I always try to encourage you guys, remember not to drop your pencils because it can damage your lid throughout the barrel. So, as I said, circular pencil, not much information. Barrels are painted black with a color chip on the end. The pencil is domed, so you're not going to see if it's centered right off. Now, what I do like is that they printed the color number on the actual end of the dome. That way, as you're sharpening, you will always be able to refer back to the color number. So I like the fact that it's on the dome of the pencil instead of the barrel. Now the barrel reads Uni Posca Pencil, Mitsubishi Pencil Company Ltd. And that's all the information printed. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I read that this was a cedar that the barrel is made of. It is your standard barrel, and the pencils do sharpen and come to a very nice point. I will go ahead and throw in here everything that I'm about to say about these pencils are completely my opinion and solely based on the style of illustration and art that I do and the experience that I have with color pencils. I am by no means a color pencil expert, but I will just be giving you my perspective from the way that I do use color pencils. It's also important to note that I am typically a wax-based color pencil user. That's not to say that I've never used oil-based, because I do have some oil-based pencil reviews here on the channel. However, I do not use them on as consistent of a basis that I do wax pencils, just in case any of that information plays any part in how you view what I say about the pencils. Okay, moving on. As I said earlier, the pencils sharpen really well. And from the sharpening, I was able to tell that all of the pencils were pretty centered. Nothing was wacky or off or weird or anything like that. As far as that goes, that is the presentation. That's how the pencils look. All of the lids seem to match the barrels pretty close. Nothing is ever an exact match, and I do always suggest that whatever medium you're using, you do attempt to swatch them out on the paper type that you use the most, just so you will have a good color reference of the product that you're using. So I'm gonna stack these together, and I'll leave them to the side here as we take a look at the actual swatch of them. So in classic fashion, I did swatch the pencils out on one of the papers that I use the most when it comes to a drawing medium. Now this is the Soho Urban Artist heavyweight drawing paper. This is a 135-pound paper. It's almost cardstock. It's so thick, and I really like this paper for colored pencils and oil pastels. But that's beside the point. So I swatched the pencils out, and for the most part, I got a really smooth, consistent laydown. These pencils are super soft. Almost remind me of Prismacolor, as soft as the lid is. Now, that is gonna have some things to go along with it, but it made the swatching really easy. And it was also easy to build color and saturation because the pencils are so soft and they layer well. Again, like Prismacolor, and I use Prismacolor as a base reference because it's the pencil that I use the most. So like Prismacolor, it actually allows you to kind of blend and layer the lighter colors on top of several layers of color. But again, we're going to get to that in just a moment. As you can see, it's a pretty dynamic range of pencils for it to be 36. I'll say throughout the actual illustrations that I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I don't feel like there was like a gap. I was really able to get the look and the blends that I was going for using the pencils that came in the set without having to augment it with anything additional. Other than I do believe in some illustrations I may have used a white Prismacolor pencil, and there are going to be some illustrations where I use gouache as well, but we'll talk about that too. The earth tone range was, 36 pencils. They did the best that they could. There's a couple of different grays, a black which is pretty saturated and opaque, and a white that, although it's not the most opaque white I've ever seen, it's also not weak, especially when you kind of think about the price of the overall set. So swatching went well, did some color blending, pulled what I felt would be a primary red, yellow, and blue, did a color wheel. The colors layered and blended really well. I like the fact that you were able to see the saturated secondary colors from layering the pencils on top of each other. I used several different blending techniques, which we're going to look at in just a second. And with all of them, I feel like the pencils reacted really well. That being an alcohol blending test, a baby oil blending test, which although they didn't blend out the best with it, they still did lay down into the tooth of the paper to allow you to add more layers on top. Then of course I did a spirit blending test, and I feel like they blended the best with odorless mineral spirit, which will kind of give you this oil painting effect or feel with the pencils when used in combination with each other. And then here again, I put down a couple of layers of white on top of alcohol marker. Here it was done on a piece of black mixed media paper. Just again to test the opacity. And for the most part, it's a pretty semi-opaque pencil that will help you get some secondary highlights, but for that matter, so will like the number 32 gray tone. So you have some different highlighting options in the set when you're talking about mixed media. So for the smudge test, you'll see here, the pencils will move. I do have pretty oily skin, and I feel like these pencils react really well with oil. as I was speaking earlier about the odorless mineral spirits. So throughout the illustrations, I did find myself putting a piece of paper down under my hand to keep my palm from smudging any of the work that I was doing. And I didn't really do the greatest job in one or two illustrations, but it was something that I attempted to do. Now, I saved this part as well to do the erase test with you all so you'd be able to see it in action. Now, what I've done here is put down about 2 layers of, I think it was the number 33 gray, which is about your medium tone. So now I'm just going to use a white eraser. It says vinyl, I do believe. And just try to erase that pigment there. And as you can see, it lifts. That's a lot of pigment. So if it was a much lighter pressured line, like say maybe you're just drawing out or sketching out your underpaintings, I feel like it would erase pretty well to lighten the lines enough for you not to be able to see them under like your oil. You wouldn't really see them under gouache, but your more transparent mediums, like say your watercolor brush pens or your watercolors, inks, anything that's rather transparent, I do feel like you would be able to lighten the line back enough as long as you didn't use too much pressure. Did a couple of preliminary illustrations with the pencils, which turned out okay. I really just was trying to get a really good feel before I jumped into doing any really serious artwork with them. And here I kept thinking to myself, they did okay on this paper. Is pretty smooth. It doesn't have much tooth to it at all. So I was only able to get so many layers on each of these little illustrations before I felt like I was really just denting the paper versus actually laying down any pigment. So maybe on a smoother paper, I didn't get as many layers as I'm gonna get on a more textured paper in some other illustrations. So, but I will say, with the preliminary testing, the swatching, the layering for the color mixing, smudging and erasing, even though we just did those two, with the ones that I did before we got to these two, I was feeling that for the type of pencil that they seem to be advertised to be, that they were doing pretty okay. But you know, I'm not one that can tell whether I'm gonna like a product simply from swatching it. I really need to do some work with it. When it comes to colored pencils, although I am not a professional colored pencil artist by any means, I do try to do a few standalone illustrations just so I have that experience to actually speak about the pencils from. So I grabbed a pad of 1264 Fabriano drawing paper for two reasons. One, because I wanted to test the pencils on a more toothy paper. And two, I really wanted to start testing this particular paper out for colored pencils. So I did quite a few illustrations here when it came to the drawing pad. I actually filled, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. Here we go. I actually filled a page with illustrations in order to really test the standalone ability of these pencils. And I will have to say, friends, I was thoroughly impressed. As I said earlier, the advertisement hit it dead on with the pencils being soft and layerable. Some of these I went in with 3 or 4 layers. Of course, you know, with colored pencil work, it does take a little time to complete an illustration, so I did try to keep each one small, and I've decided that for each color pencil set that I test from now on, I'm just going to do one of these little pages. That way I'm really able to get a few illustrations under my belt. Now here with the rose, the way those blues, which can be one of my trouble colors when it comes to color pencil, especially standalone pencil pieces, they blended and layered so well. And I love the way the colors seem to just kind of contrast and complement each other, even if they're not in the same color family. Being able to use different tones like purples and browns to do my shadows versus maybe a black, but still being able to blend those colors into the black so the black has a little life to it, you know what I mean? Not feel so like just kind of dead. Wonderful. I had a really good time with these pencils. And this was one of the first sets that I've used, contrary to them being oil-based versus wax-based, where I was really enjoying the time just using the pencils without having to grab any other medium in order to add to it. Now, I can't speak from a coloring book perspective because I haven't used them in a coloring book. But as far as sketching out your own illustration and just going bone hauls from a piece of scratch artwork, I feel like they worked really well for me. And I was really pleased with these pencils. So here we have an apple, really quick, a landscape. I did the iris of an eye, a rose, and then of course the Posca logo itself. And I actually used the color pencils to color in the wording. And as you can see, they got down into the tooth of that paper pretty well. You can still see a few white areas, but this is a rather thin drawing paper, and contrast to what I swatched on. This is only 75 pounds, and in comparison to, what was it, 135 pounds? Yeah, 135 pounds for the paper that I swatched on. So even though the papers were of different weights, I was actually able to get more layers here, more tooth, although it's a thinner paper, and they just blended beautifully. I love the way the iris came out, and this is what I mean by I really didn't feel like I was missing anything, because with the greens, you only get like a couple of greens in the set. You got a range of about 4, then there's a greeny blue color. But I was able to grab a darker green. Well, there's some over here too. The greens had a pretty big range. But I was able to grab a lighter green and a darker green. I blended in a more turquoisey blue, a more primary blue. I mixed in a black, and I feel like they just all worked so well to bring the illustrations to life. So I have to say that it was a really decent experience just using the pencils by themselves, to the point where I felt the need to do enough illustrations to say I'll make pages moving forward. Lastly, I used the pencils in a mixed media project over in the creation station level of the Thrifty Patreon community, where we did the focal image for the cover of a watercolor block that I put together. I'm going to be doing a video on making watercolor blocks coming up soon, and I wanted to get the illustration done. We did it in the creation station. It turned out really well. Now, here is one of the drawbacks, because I'm always honest with you guys, of the pencils, period. So they do have a really soft lid. Therefore, they wear down really well and are really fast, I'm sorry. And that fastness is really depicted by the type of paper you use the pencils on. If you use these pencils on a more toothy paper, I'm here to tell you, you're going to use up much more of the lead, much more pigment, much quicker than you would if you were using it on a smoother, less toothy, maybe even cardstockish Bristol board type paper. So here, this is a 140-pound rough pressed Bohan 100% cotton paper. The first layer of this illustration was done with the Uptrek artist gouache, and then everything else was done with the Posca color pencils. And I feel like, and I mixed in a little bit of Prismacolor Verithin pencils into this. It was mixed media. But overall, the majority of the work was done by the Posca pencils, and I feel like they worked so beautifully. I love the way that this turns out. I'm trying to tilt it so nothing will reflect in the actual cover, so you'll be able to see it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. So if you are a Creation Station member and you haven't had a chance to experience this one, it is a live. It's a 2-part live. It happened over 2 weeks over in the Creation Station. So go check it out, paint along, have fun. Let me know what you do, friends. All right, so as I said to you earlier, these pencils are about $35, $36 on Amazon. Now, with my experience, from what I know about color pencils and what I experienced using these pencils, I would say they are worth it. If I had to give them a star rating on a scale of 1 to 5, these pencils would fall in about a 4.5 for me. They almost make the 5 mark. The thing is, I'm not a real oil-based pencil user, so that's not a pro or a con, that's just a personal thing. With that said, do keep in mind, as I said earlier, you're going to use up a lot of the media fast, especially if you're doing it on a more toothy paper, because they are so soft. So that could be an advantage or a drawback depending on who you are and how you look at it. But for me, I think the pencils are a win. I'm very happy that I have them. I do feel like they are on the right targeted price point. They're not too expensive. They work just as well of some of the legacy brand pencils that I've used. I feel like Posca lived up to their name of the quality that you would expect from one of their products. And if you were to ask me would I recommend the pencils, I absolutely would. And that's a lot coming from someone who doesn't use oil-based pencils on a very regular basis. So there you have it, friends. I don't feel like I missed anything important about the pencils. It's not like I had any bad experience with them. I mean, there's not anything that I really feel like I need to warn you against other than using the media up fast. They did not break really easily at all, although they are soft. Of course, you know, there's a loophole to every rule, so if you sharpen them too sharp, then you definitely will break them if you're using too much pressure. And I did just sharpen them in a standard Office Depot electric pencil sharpener, nothing fancy at all. So there you have that, friends. Hopefully that information is something that is relevant, useful, and helpful to you. If you picked up on anything or saw anything in this video that you found helpful or like, please don't forget to sprinkle a little love and give the video a thumbs up. You can share the video. Maybe someone else is new to hearing about Posca pencils and they would like to see what, you know, one particular artist may have to say about them. Sharing is caring, and it helps out the algorithm as well. If you are new to this channel and you're returning and you have not subscribed, do consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you'll know when we upload and when we go live. This is a mixed media channel, so you get art projects, demos, tutorials, lives surrounding many different mediums, mostly water soluble, but definitely other things. Jump in the comment section, let me know what you think. What do you think of the price point? Based on what I said, do you feel like that might be worth it? Have you used them yourself? And if so, what was your experience with the Posca pencils? Now, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop it in the comment section and I will respond to them as quickly as I possibly can. And lastly, be sure to check the video description. We are about to go into September, and September is going to be the kickoff of Thrifty Cheap Art Challenge month. So check the video description, find the Defiant Art link, head on over to the website and check out the details for the Thrifty Cheap Art Challenge happening during the month of September so that you can participate and get yourself in the drawing to win the mega prize. So definitely check out the Defiant Art link. There's going to be social links for Patreon if you're interested in the Creation Station or just becoming a free member, most recommended product list, as well as the artist wish list. And remember, as I tell you guys at the end of every single video, just keep creating, my friends.